Hello, and welcome to part one of the story Rookies Pre-Season. Section 1, Prep. All Rookie did in January and February was study, practice, study, repeat, again and again, over and over, practice, study, practice, study. Anyone watching might have figured the guy for a boring grind who never had any fun, but they would have been dead wrong. Rookie just loved to study baseball, any aspect of baseball. He was so happy when practicing that his lips were always curled up. He even laughed out loud when he flubbed something. Baseball was his game. He liked to bat and he liked to play every position. He particularly wanted to know every aspect of pitching because pitching was such a critical part of the game. When he asked his team's coach about it, he learned that young guys shouldn't pitch too much and shouldn't try to throw curveballs because repeated violent movement can damage young arms. Just now he was studying fastballs, and there were lots of variations of fastballs that he wanted to learn. He knew he couldn't match the speed of a pro, and the short 46-foot distance to the Little League plate meant that he had no chance of moving the ball the way a pro can to befuddle a batter. His interest was to know the ways a pitcher could throw off a hitter's perception and timing. He doubted he'd ever become a pro pitcher himself, but he knew he'd be a better hitter if he knew about the pitches he might someday face. Rookie learned that changing the way you hold the ball could make it move in different ways. You then just use your natural throwing motion and don't try to force its movement. He had three favorites. The cutter makes the batter think it's a normal fastball until it cuts sharply in front of the batter. The pitcher holds the ball on its four seams, but places his middle finger toward the outside of the ball to give the ball the needed spin. Rookie always liked the two-seam fastball. It's thrown like a normal fastball, but holding it that way slows it by a couple of miles per hour, and it moves different directions depending on which finger you give more pressure. Now it was the sinker that was his real favorite. Its drop usually makes the batter hit a grounder or pop it up when he overcompensates with a change in his swing. The pitcher grips it where the two seams come closest, places his thumb on the bottom of the ball below his index finger, and snaps his wrist down when he releases it. Rookie heard it could be hard to control. He planned to study it more and would ask about it if he ever had a chance to talk to a pro. Section 2, the practice game. One afternoon, Rookie was walking to the neighborhood field for a practice game against the Pit Bulls, arch rivals of his own team, the Red Sox. He turned his head when he heard, "Hey, mate, wait up!" and his friend B.R. jogged up to join him. B.R. was short for Bruce Roberts, a friend he often visited to play wiffle ball. B.R.'s yard was small, with big tree branches hanging low over it, so they played with a wiffle golf ball. When B.R. had first invited him, Rookie doubted it'd be much fun since the branches prevented long home runs. But instead of using the yellow plastic bat, B.R. used a sawed-off broom handle that made for a fast-paced game where fielding was far more important than in normal wiffle ball. "Let's hope we can get some double play practice before the game," B.R. said as he caught up to Rookie. "Yup, I'd sure like to notch a double play before the season starts," Rookie replied. For the past 2 weeks he'd played second base and B.R. played shortstop. They worked well together, but didn't yet have the polished moves needed to pull one off. As they walked, they discussed their worries about the Pit Bulls' two big hitters, and as usual, they were the first to arrive at the field. "Too bad Coach didn't come early. I'd like some extra practice on grounders," Rookie said. After Coach and the other players dribbled in, the assistant coach started pregame practice hitting flies to the outfield with a fungo bat. Coach ran a short infield practice and then gave the team a 3-hit batting practice before turning the field over to the Pit Bulls for their warm-up. Coach used the time to talk about his observations and game strategy. And here's what he said. "I watched Mantle and Maris practice the other night, and I gotta say they were really impressive. Both of them hit the longest balls I ever saw in Little League. Now, Mantle and Maris were coaches' nicknames for the Pitbull's two best hitters. And in their practice game against the Eagles last week, they drove in 9 runs between them. They bat third and fourth in the lineup. And since they're visiting team today, we got to avoid early game jitters and get the first 2 hitters out. If we don't, Rodney here, he said, putting his arm around today's starting pitcher, Rodney will be facing those Palookas with runners on base, and he'll be sweating up a storm. You got that? Be sharp, team. Let's not start the game in a 4-run hole. Now, Rookie's mom arrived at the field and walked toward the Red Sox bench. She was umpire today, and Coach broke off his strategy session to fill out the roster for her. She took a look and passed it to Pops, who was coming up behind her. He was the league's official scorer, and although this was just a practice game, he decided he'd treat it like regular season game so he could explain the scoring method to the teams after the game. After she received the Pitbull's lineup, Mom motioned to Coach, and he sent the home team Red Sox onto the field. The outfielders threw a practice ball to each other. The first baseman rolled practice grounders to the infield, and Rodney warmed up with the catcher until Mom pointed her finger and called out, "Play ball!" And then both teams prepared for the first pitch. Mom had alerted the 2 coaches that she'd call balls and strikes from behind the pitcher because she was the only umpire for this practice session, and she had to call outs if there were fielding plays as well. "First pitch, ball," Mom said, holding her hand down as she clicked the ball strike counter. "Strike" came next as she raised her right arm and pointed her finger. A swing and a miss came next. Rodney followed it with a changeup that just floated in. The batter chopped a ground ball to short. BR charged it. Rodney moved out of the way, and BR fired the first. Mom raised her right thumb as the ball arrived in the first baseman's mitt, well ahead of the runner. When Rodney walked the second batter, Rookie thought, "Uh-oh, not so good." But he started chatter in the infield with, "Okay, Rod, you got this guy. Throw it right past him. Okay, let's go Sox. Let's go Sox." The Pitbulls chattered too, and the most common line was, "Knock it down their throats, Keller." The guy listened to his fans, grinned, and smashed the first pitch to left field long and high. The left fielder ran back, almost stumbled, seemed to misjudge it, but finally chased it down and caught it as the runner returned to first base. Rookie called out, "Okay, guys, one more, then it's our turn. Give it to him, Rod." The second bruiser, whose name was Bunk, walked to the plate as though he owned the field and could burn it down or plow it under if he wanted. He was left-handed, tapped the plate hard, and gave Rodney an ugly smirk. The Pitbull's bench erupted with a chant, "Bash it, Bunk! Bash it, Bunk! Bash it, Bunk!" "Ball," Mom called after the first pitch, and then "Ball 2." 2 foul balls later, Bunk looked like he was about to explode. And he did. He caught Rodney's low inside fastball and rocketed it hard as a ground ball to the right of first base. The runner got out of the way and dashed toward second. After 2 short steps, Rookie launched himself like an interceptor missile with his glove hand stretched as far as bones and tendons would allow. He snagged the grounder with his black glove's web, slid on his chest, and in a cloud of dust rose to his knees and tossed the ball to the first baseman. Rodney whooped. BR slapped Rookie's back, and the Red Sox headed to the dugout. The Sox didn't score in the bottom of the first, and neither team scored in the second or third inning. In the top of the fourth, Rodney got tired. He walked 2 batters, and then a single went into center field, and it brought in a run. The Sox finally retired the side, but since this practice game would run only 5 innings, they had only 2 more innings to catch up and go ahead. Coach was tense. That made the whole team tense. BR was first up in the fourth. He made it to first base on a bunt, but the next 2 Red Sox batters struck out. The Pit Bulls pitcher was acting cocky, and their infield chatter was, "Hey, killers, strike out the side. Show 'em who's boss. Show 'em who's boss. Show 'em their dirt." Rookie was next up. He hated that kind of trash talk, and he decided he'd do something about it. In his previous at-bat in the second inning, he'd squibbed a measly grounder to the third baseman. He wasn't happy about it, but he put it behind him, and he committed to concentrate on the ball. After his practice swings and before he stepped into the batter's box, he surveyed the Pit Bulls' fielders' positions, and he noticed they were playing him very shallow in the outfield. He thought. They never saw me play before, and my first at-bat must have convinced them I'm no danger. BR shouted, "Show 'em who's the real boss, boss man." Rookie hid his smile but thought, okay, time to get serious. The first pitch was low and outside. Next came a high, hard fastball. Rookie swung for the fences and missed. He took a breath, tapped the plate, scraped the dirt from his cleats, and planted his back foot hard and deep. The next pitch came in low and inside, but Rookie went after it. He whipped his bat and caught the ball in the middle of the barrel. What a feeling, he thought. Nailed it. He glanced at the high line drive for only a second as he pumped toward first base, and with his head down he didn't see it sail over the left fielder's head. But with 2 out, BR had headed for second without waiting to see if the ball would be caught, and he'd round in second well before Rookie ever made it to first. The left fielder had no chance of catching it. For speed, he turned and run with his back to the ball, but not watching it was a mistake. He'd headed towards center field, but the ball landed near the foul line with a spin that took it deep into foul territory. While Rookie roared for second base, he saw BR round third and head for home. When he reached second himself, he looked toward the third base coach for a sign whether he should hold or push on. Rodney was there, waving him on. Wild cheers went up from the Red Sox bench when BR touched home. The left fielder finally caught up to the ball and threw it to the cutoff man, their shortstop, but it went wild. When Rookie approached third, the second baseman was still chasing the ball into right field. Rodney waved him home. Rookie gave it all he had. His chest was pounding. BR had positioned himself behind the catcher and urged Rookie forward with a big underhand wave. When Rookie was 3 steps from the plate, BR cast both hands down to his left side as a signal to slide. Rookie threw his arms up, his left foot out ahead, folded his right foot under, and aimed for the right side of the plate. He landed and slid past the plate. The second baseman's throw came in. The catcher snagged it with his mitt, covered it with his hand, twisted and swung to the plate. Just after Rookie slapped his hand onto the plate in its outside corner. The Sox bench erupted with cheers as they went up 2-1. But the bench went quiet after the next batter struck out, and the team headed back to the field for the top of the 5th, knowing they'd be facing the top of the Pit Bulls order and the 2 bruisers. Everyone knew Rodney's arm was tired, but Coach left him in to pitch. The team was in a dangerous position. The first Pit Bull batter chopped a slow-moving grounder toward the first baseman. He fielded it, turned toward the bag, and tossed it to Rodney, who had run over to take the throw. BR livened up the infield with his chatter line. 1 down, Rod, 2 to go, and all the infielders picked it up. The next batter smacked the first pitch down the left field line. Third baseman locked it down, but he couldn't get a throw off to first. The Sox spirits took a dive. Now there was a man on base as the pitcher they call Killer came to the plate. Rodney's first pitch was far outside, so the catcher almost missed it. His next pitch was a fastball. Killer nailed it, but it curved foul down the right field line. That spooked Rodney, and he walked a few steps back from the rubber. Coach jogged out to the mound for a quick conference. It seemed to calm his nerves, but the next 3 pitches went far outside and Killer walked. Rookie felt the tension in the pit of his stomach. 2 men on base, he thought, possibly the winning runs, and a powerful hitter coming to the plate. Coach waved the outfielders back, so far back that Rookie worried that a single could turn into a double and score the 2 runners on base. Tension was high in the infield. They couldn't afford an error. When Bunk strutted to the plate, he whacked his bat down like an axe on firewood. He smirked, nodded, and winked toward the runners as though they were his adoring fans. Then he raised his bat high behind his shoulders and fixed a cold stare on Rodney. The first pitch came in low, but Bunk bent his knees, stepped forward, and smacked it. The ball rocketed 2 bounces to BR's left. He fielded it cleanly, flipped it underhand towards second base. Rookie arrived just as the ball hung over the base. He caught it in his up-facing glove, dragged his toe across the bag, and brought his glove to his shoulder and braced his legs to stop the forward momentum. With his back foot planted, he threw a strike to the first baseman, beating the runner by a full step. Double play, inning over. The Red Sox had faced a tough situation and pulled off the 2-1 victory. No need to bat in the bottom of the 5th since they'd already won. The outfielders threw their gloves into the air and shouted as they ran in. The few Red Sox players left on the bench rushed onto the field cheering. Rodney jumped about 3 feet into the air and did a somersault off the pitcher's mound. Mom was the umpire, so she had to be impartial, and she didn't cheer. But her smile could have lit up a stadium at night. Coach brought the team into the huddle where they cheered the pit bulls and tossed their gloves into the air. Section 3. The Bat Mystery begins. Pops wrapped up his score sheet. He needed to appear impartial, too, but there was a twinkle in his eye. He called to both teams that he was ready for any player interested in learning how official score sheets were filled out, and he explained it to a half-dozen who came. As everyone was gathering their gear and leaving the field, Rookie brought his bat to Pops. "Can you listen to this?" he said as he shook the bat and then tapped it on the ground. "Hear that? It's a tinkling, like something's broken inside. How can that happen with a solid wood bat? I can imagine something like that with a hollow aluminum bat. But solid wood?" Rookie had felt and heard something when he smacked his homer, but he'd forgotten about it until he picked up the bat after the game and heard the tinkle. Pops took the bat, inspected it, and said, "Well, this isn't exactly a solid wood. It's a composite bat. The type includes materials other than wood, sometimes a reinforced carbon fiber polymer. That reduces its weight so you can swing faster. The designers also distribute its weight in a way that gives a trampoline effect that adds power and reduces the sting you sometimes feel when you contact the ball wrong. But I can't imagine what would make this tinkle sound. I'll take it home and see what I can find in my lab." Pops returned the bat to Rookie the next morning, saying, "I found some interesting things in this puppy, but I'm in a rush with no time to talk. I'll explain when you get home from practice this evening." Rookie arrived late, and afternoon's practice had already started. He took his place at second base, but he noticed another guy was playing shortstop. "Where's BR?" he asked Coach.
He was here this afternoon. He was here earlier, but his father came and took him home. Said he was sick," Coach replied.
"Ha! I didn't know BR had a robot for a father," Rodney said sarcastically. "What are you talking about?" Rookie said as gruffly as he could. "His father's a nice man." Coach interrupted.
"I don't know BR's father, but the man who took him away did act a bit like a robot. He just walked up to BR, planted his hands on BR's shoulders, turned to me and said, 'He's sick. Take him home.' BR didn't move or say anything, and then his father threw him over his shoulder and carried him away that way."
Coach turned and pointed and said,
"Oh, that's the man over there. He's coming back."
Rookie looked, shook his head, and said, "That's not BR's father." The man walked straight to the baseball gear,
kicked away balls, kicked away the catcher's chest protectors, kicked away bats. Then he picked up Rookie's bat and walked away. Rookie ran after him, yelling, "Hey, you can't take that. Who are you?" Then the man started running. Rookie ran after him, but the man was so fast he made it around the corner and out of sight in an instant. "Coach, what can we do?" Coach shrugged his shoulders and put his hands out. He did nothing. Part 2. The sound of screeching tires came from beyond the corner. Then came the sound of a crash. Rookie ran to the corner, up the street, and saw a car smashed around a traffic sign with steam coming from its engine. His baseball bat lay across the street's dotted line, and he picked it up. "What happened?" he asked the driver, who was now standing with his hands on his hips and looking forlornly at the steaming wreck. "Some guy ran in front of me, and I couldn't stop in time. It knocked him up into the air. The car skidded into this pole, and the guy crashed down onto the street. I went to help him, but he already stood up and was running down that way. He must be one tough guy to be alive." Rookie walked in the direction the driver indicated, and at the next corner he encountered a woman working in her flower garden. "Excuse me, ma'am, did you see a man running or walking near here a few minutes ago?" "Why, yes, I did, young man. He was walking very fast with a limp, and the last I saw of him, it was at the end of that street, entering a chain fence around the industrial estate." Rookie thanked her and jogged to the fence, which he found was 12 feet high. Unfortunately, it had been covered with paper on the inside, and he couldn't see through, so he went home, found his brother Leo and Pops in the kitchen. He told them the strange events that had happened and his concern about BR. Then he asked Pops, "Can you tell me what you found when you inspected the bat last night?" Pops said, "Well, sure. It's another weird thing. A very thin compartment had been created inside the barrel of the bat, and it contained a torque measuring device, a memory chip, and highly advanced two-dimensional graphene strips for power. The chip had been torn loose and its corners broken off, and that's what was causing the tinkling. But what it did exactly and why it was there is a matter of speculation. My best guess is that it was measuring a hitter's power. But why somebody would construct such an expensive device and then just let the bat be stored along with the team's other bats, that's hard to understand. I'll keep thinking about it." After Pops went back to his home office, Rookie asked Leo if he could help him get an idea of what was behind the fence. "Sure can," Leo said. "I have just a couple more pieces to assemble, and then I'll have a photographic drone. I designed it to be quiet and unobtrusive. It also transmits digital images back, so just in case it should crash, I still get to see the videos or photos it's taken." "Way cool," Rookie said. "Can you finish it up and make a run for me before it gets dark?" 10 minutes later, Leo and Rookie headed out. They hid in some trees across the fence and launched the drone. It lifted off in near silence and immediately transmitted a video to Leo's mobile phone. It showed a large building that could have been a warehouse or an airplane hangar, 2 trucks, and a ring of 12-foot fencing around the property. But what got their attention was a golden object in front of the building that gleamed in the sun so brightly it sometimes became invisible to the camera. It was as long as a trailer truck and shaped quite like a box of eggs, with two rows of 6 connected spherical compartments. "What on earth is that?" Rookie asked. "Beats me," Leo responded as he ordered the drone back into his hand. The two walked back home, chatting and speculating what the object might be. The best guess Leo could offer was, since this is an industrial area, perhaps the device includes compartments that store materials for some complex mixing operation, kind of like making concrete from gravel and water and cement, but more complex. But that's just a wild guess. It could be anything.
That night, Rookie became increasingly worried about BR, and he walked to his house first thing in the morning. BR's aunt answered the door. She explained that BR's parents were out of town, that he wasn't home, and she figured he had either joined them or had decided to stay over at some friend's house. Rookie said he heard BR had been taken away from practice by some stranger, but didn't know himself, and offered that she might notify the police that he was missing. "Oh, I couldn't do that," she said, shaking her head. "He'd be so embarrassed when he comes home." That afternoon, Rookie decided to go to the field and watch a practice game between the Ravens and the Yankees. He was standing with his elbows out on top of the fence when the two pit bull bruisers, Killer and Bunk, came up and leaned on the fence too. They started a conversation, and Rookie was surprised to find they were very friendly toward him, and he enjoyed the conversation about the strengths and weaknesses of all the teams in the league. They did shoot him a barb about his double play, but it wasn't fun, and the two seemed to be very good guys. Rookie mentioned his concern that BR had disappeared. But then Bunk shared his own concern that one of the pit bulls had disappeared, and when he had asked his coach, he'd heard that several boys in the neighborhood were missing. The police weren't doing anything about it because they figured the boys had all gone off on an adventure, like camping or something. Rookie said, "I have an idea where our players have disappeared to. Want to check it out with me this evening?" Rookie met them at the corner that evening, and they walked together to the hiding spot Rookie had used for Leo's drone. The glow of lights was visible over the fence, and after watching and listening for signs of activity, Rookie said, "Okay, let's give it a shot. We'll go up one at a time and hold on the top of the fence to make sure it's safe." Climbing the 12-foot fence was no bargain. Fitting their toes of their sneakers into the fence's diamond-shaped links was tough, especially for the bruisers, who were bigger guys. But all three were perched at the top in a couple of minutes. The yard was well lit up. The egg carton-shaped thing was still there, and the huge door to the building was open. "Looks all clear, but let's all descend together, and we'll clear out at the first sign of a problem," Rookie said. They looked at each other, wondering just why they were taking such a chance as breaking into a business. And that 12-foot fence looked like it'd be much harder to climb from this side, because every step would have to be poke their toes through the paper. They listened carefully, didn't move at first, but finally Rookie gave a hand signal to approach the egg carton. After a few steps, he could see deeper into the building. A dozen vats of what appeared to be open bins of dirt, some shiny and sparkling, others dull, and one that even looked green. Reaching the egg carton, Bunk ran his hand along the smooth, curved surface. He nodded and pursed his lips with an expression showing that he was really impressed. Rookie tapped lightly on the side of the pod. Vibration seemed to travel throughout the entire carton. He wasn't sure if sound could penetrate the carton, but decided to take a chance and whispered, "BR, are you inside?" Nothing came back. He walked to the next pod, tapped a bit louder, and said much louder, "BR, are you there?" This time muffled, indistinct sounds seemed to emanate from several pods. The three were walking around the carton to try the other side when terror struck. Robo was charging at them with his fists up, a crazy look in his eyes, a grimace on his face, and a low growl coming from his guts. They ran for the fence. Robo changed directions mechanically and charged. The bruisers were fast and above his head before Rookie got started up that fence. The fence was swaying with the others' weight and movement, and Rookie had trouble punching his hands through the paper and finding footholds. He was about at shoulder height when Robo arrived and grabbed both of his legs. Rookie held the fence with his hands, with all the strength he had. Robo pulled and pulled again, but he didn't release the fence. It was cutting his fingers. It hurt like crazy, and he called out, "Help!" Both bruisers looked down.
killer was almost directly above him, and he called out, "Geronimo!" and he jetted toward Robo. His feet came down on Robo's shoulders and knocked him flat. Rookie poured on the upward speed, and Killer was out of reach before Robo got up off the ground. Robo grabbed the chain-link fence, growled, and shook it violently. He didn't stop until the three had disappeared down the fence and down the street. Around the corner, the boys made a three-way handshake, and Killer said, "That was a close call. I better get home now, but let's talk again and decide what to do next." Rookie was downcast as he walked home, even though he was energized by being saved from Robo. He hadn't learned anything about BR's whereabouts. What would I want BR to do for me if I disappeared, he asked himself. When he arrived home, Mom, Leo, and Pops were talking at the kitchen counter. Leo greeted him with, "What'd you find out, bro?" "Not much," Rookie replied. "I did learn Robo is in there, and I did see what could be some ores or some kind of mineral, something, stored in bins in the warehouse. I know nothing about them, but there were 12 of them. And since the egg carton has 12 units, I can imagine it was their delivery vehicle. I'm also starting to think the egg carton may be really a spaceship. It's made of some kind of fancy metal. I can't tell how it got there. It seems too big to have been put on a truck and driven through the streets. I don't know. Did it fly?" "Hey, Leo, use your wormhole detector if it's still working." Leo nodded and said, "Yeah, I got it rebuilt. It's working just fine now." Then Rookie answered, "Hey, could you take a little evening stroll and test how the gravity is near there?" Leo replied, "Right on it, bro," and he headed toward his room. Rookie said, "And Pops, any chance you could check for unusual movements in nearby space or some kind of UFO entering the atmosphere any time in the last week or so?" Pops gave a nod, put down his cup of tea, opened his laptop, and kicked off some specialized programs he had written for the Planetary Defense Council. As Rookie opened the refrigerator for a glass of milk to accompany the cookie Mom had put on the table, she said, "You know, if that is a spaceship, and especially if it's not one monitored by the government, it just might have brought some foreign microbes here with it. Microbes that might be dangerous to you and to all of us. I'll take a scanner that I've been using for infectious diseases coming out of China and Africa, and I'll go down there with Leo. While he's checking out the gravity level, I'll check for microbes." Rookie sat on the living room sofa, thinking and worrying the whole time they were away. He wanted to help BR, but others were doing all the work. When Mom and Leo returned, they announced there was nothing unusual in the area and plopped down on the sofa next to him. Pops heard them came from the kitchen and said, "Sorry, the wormhole ideas looks like a dead end, but it doesn't really surprise me. I have something, a blurred image of a vehicle, some kind of UFO, that arrived from space 3 days ago. But until I get to analyze it on the observatory supercomputer tomorrow, I won't be able to tell just what it is. My laptop does show a trajectory from the edge of the troposphere directly to this area, though. But apparently my colleagues who did see it didn't think it was a threat to the planet." "Gee," Mom said, "I bet the unusual edges of an egg carton would give off a blurred image, maybe like the image that you just saw on the computer. The carton could even have been designed to confuse radar and make observers think it's just a private plane or some such thing." Pop said, "Good point. You could be right. I'll let you know what I find." The next morning he phoned Rookie. "Rookie, I can't resolve the image into a clear shape. It's intentionally blurred by some type of jamming done by the object itself. But I've been able to track its journey. It originated somewhere near Mars, 192 million miles away, and it traveled 9 months to get here.
I had to cut short my investigation because I got to check out an object entering the solar system from another galaxy. I tell you about it, but it's classified and it just may be dangerous. I can't talk about it, but I got to go, and I'll work to connect the dots on this problem for BR as soon as I got time. But I got to go for now. Rookie stayed awake most of the night, worrying about BR, and he had no taste for eating breakfast in the morning. He talked to his brother. Leo collected his drone, some other tools, and a rope. Then he phoned the Bruisers, and Rookie grabbed his baseball bat, and the four met in the bushes across from the industrial park. Leo sent up his drone and reported back that the place seemed deserted, though he hadn't directed his drone inside the building for fear it could alert the bad guys who might be in there. Then Rookie laid out his plan. We'll all go in together. First we check out the hangar or warehouse or whatever that building is. If Robo's inside, we'll try to talk to him. But if he's as aggressive as we've seen so far, we'll tie him up with a rope. If others are there and not willing to talk and resolve this, then we're in for a fight. We'll have to rely on whatever we find to disable them. Then we check the egg carton and open it up if we can. They scaled the fence, climbed down, and walked stealthily toward the hangar's door. It was dark inside, and the outside light allowed them to see only a few feet. Rookie could now see the bins of materials. He saw they were marked palladium, gold, cyanobacteria, osmium, iridium, rhodium, germanium, beryllium, jadeite, platinum, and a few others with signs facing away that he couldn't see. He couldn't imagine what was inside the deep, cavernous space. He was scared, but he had to keep going and find BR. He put his fingers to his lips to signal for silence, raised his free hands, pointed inside, and walked forward. They followed. And then his whole plan fell apart. 1,000 lights turned on, blinding the boys. A big man dressed in a suit and necktie stood before them. Rookie turned to run, but Robo stood behind him, holding a pitchfork with 5-foot-long tines. He looked left, then right, only to find 2 thugs with pistols drawn. The suited man boomed, "How nice of you young fellows to volunteer to come with us. Ho-hoo! But unfortunately, we have only space for one more in our ship. Now, you 3 strapping guys would have been perfect a couple of years ago, but you won't fit in there now. But I see we have one who will fit, and let me see. Yes," he cackled to Rookie. "You're the one who broke the bat. Wonderful. We'll get double the normal price for you. How good for us. We'll be paid for delivering 13 when we only send 12. Super, thank you." Rookie was stunned, terrified. What does this mean? He asked himself. What could it mean? The man walked forward, grabbed the bat from Rookie's hand, tapped it on the floor, listened to the tinkle, and smiled. "Such a shame. Your great hit broke a valuable device. But not to worry, it's replaceable." He threw the bat behind him, and when it struck the floor, the sound bounced off the walls, and it skidded back into the huge, cavernous, nearly empty building. He grabbed Rookie by the ear and walked toward the door in the egg carton. He called to the 2 thugs. "I'm going to load this one into the spaceship. Let's clean it up and get the cruiser out of here. You get rid of those 3 guys. I don't want them to be around to tell stories. Ever. Understood?" "Okay, boss," the 2 thugs said. As he was pushed toward the door with his ear killing him, Rookie twisted violently, liberated his ear, and got a few feet away from the boss. He reached to the bin marked gold, grabbed a heavy nugget the size of a baseball, and threw a strike at a small device attached to a pipe up on the ceiling above the door. That was a fire sprinkler head, he knew. It snapped off. A siren sounded, and a set of red and yellow lights began spinning, and water shot out from every sprinkler head in the building. The water's force amazed everyone, and the floor was flooded in seconds. The boss lunged, grabbed Rookie by the neck in his big hand, and pulled a fire axe off the wall near the door. He held its fierce red blade right up to Rookie's nose. "Pull something like that again, you'll be breathing through your ears the rest of your life, smart boy." And he pushed Rookie ahead of him, holding the axe toward the golden egg carton. Bunk took advantage of the spraying water to duck out into the yard with his bat. He ran toward the egg carton and bashed it with all the force he had in him. But the bat just bounced off. Frustrated, he kept bashing away as one of the thugs came up from behind and poked his pistol into his back. When nobody could see him through the shooting water, Leo had slipped behind some bins, and he laid low. Killer ran to follow Bunk, but Robo attacked with a pitchfork. When Killer surrendered and put up his hands, Robo dropped the pitchfork, clapped his hands down on Killer's shoulders, and gave him the same treatment he'd given BR. And Killer slumped to the dirty water streaming from the building and into the yard. Robo then did a fast limp toward the egg carton and tapped a spot on its front edge. 2 windows now showed themselves, and a door with a ladder opened. He entered the pilot's compartment and started the engine warm-up sequence, splattering mud and dust everywhere. Boss flipped a switch to open one of the egg containers and was dragging Rookie up a ladder when Robo yelled in a gruff robot voice, "Must lock to takeoff." The sound of police sirens started in the far distance, but they were soon masked by the egg carton's engines. The noise grew even louder, because the whooping sound of a helicopter blades arrived and battered everybody's ears and masked the other noises. The sound was loud, incredibly loud. This red, white, and blue Planetary Defense Council helicopter whisked in only a few feet above the fence they had just climbed, and it stopped, hovering directly over the egg carton. The boss was standing on the spaceship, stomping his foot down on Rookie's head and trying to close the last pod's door over him when a rope flew out from the chopper. He looked up, and there was Pops following it down through the air, feet first. He caught the boss on the shoulder and neck and knocked him hard, and he landed on the ground in a bump. Now the 2 thugs stood together, and they fired their pistols at the helicopter. To save himself and his aircraft, the pilot immediately rose and flew behind the building. But that freed a path for the golden egg carton to lift off. Leo saw it, jumped out from behind the bins, and took out a weapon that his Aunt Lolabelle had given him in New York, and he let loose a blast. White glue shot toward the 2 thugs. The glue got all over them, and it turned into a rock-hard shell within seconds. He'd taken them out of action. But Robo revved his engines to a high pitch and motioned to the boss to climb back up, lock Rookie in Rookie's compartment so he could take off. But Pops was there, and he wasn't going to make it easy for the boss. So the boss looked up, saw that, and ran toward the back gate. As the dust whipped up around him, he slipped on the mud and fell. Rookie had stuck his head out of the capsule and saw the boss escaping. He set off after him. Pops yelled to him over the noise, "Watch out! He picked up that fire axe again!" Rookie did not want to face that axe again, but he wasn't going to let the creep escape. Setting off at an angle, he reached the boss before he reached the gate.
Rookie spotted a nice pool of mud ahead, and he gave it a slide, just like sliding into home, and he timed it perfectly, and he knocked the boss's feet out from under him. The boss landed on his shoulder and head and laid in a lump, breathing hard. The chopper returned and retook its position over the egg carton. Then the police blasted through the main gate with their car. They drove straight through and stopped right behind the boss. Rookie took a deep breath and thought, good, now he's their problem. With the chopper hovering over Robo and the unlocked capsule preventing him from taking off, he did his fast limp toward the gate, pursued by the two policemen. When they caught up to him, each grabbed one of Robo's arms, but he just tossed them away like dolls. Leo saw it, came up behind Robo and called out, "Surprise!" Robo turned to face Leo and stretched his hands toward his neck. Leo gave him a blast of white glue that even Robo couldn't break out of. Pops had examined the lock on Rookie's capsule and learned how to spring the others. Rookie climbed up the ladder and gingerly made his way to the next capsule and learned how Pops had done it. He opened and found it dark inside that capsule. His eyes adjusted and he could see an unmoving person standing upright, surrounded by boxes of simple food on one side and water on the other. Then he noticed the best thing he'd seen all day, a Red Sox baseball hat. He reached in, put his hand on the shoulder just under the cap and shook it. Nothing happened. He shook it again. Nothing. Then he shouted, "BR, it's time to play ball!" BR woke up, emerged. Leo ran up the ladder, and the three of them had great fun, scrambling across the egg carton spaceship and springing the kidnapped boys from the other 10 compartments. But the intense noise around them was starting to make their ears go crazy and make them feel like their brains would fall out. Just as they freed the last boy, the police turned off their siren. Whew! The building's sprinkler and siren stopped. Whew! And the chopper set down and turned off its engine. Now the only loud noise was coming from the egg carton's engine. But Pops climbed up the ladder to the pilot's compartment and shut that off too. He gathered the 10 boys from the back compartments, brought in the police, and sent them home in police cars. It sure was a happy moment when Mom drove in and gaily sounded her horn. The 6 piled in the car, waved, shouted thanks to the police, and she headed out. For a moment, their car was right next to the police paddy wagon where the boss was handcuffed. They just stared at him, asking themselves how a fairly normal-looking guy could do such evil things. Now only the 2 thugs remained behind as the police struggled to free them from the egg bath that Leo had administered. Mom took them all back home to the house. Nobody said much in the car because their ears were still ringing from the noise, and they were still recovering from the events they'd experienced. Filing quietly into the kitchen, she took out her scanner, checked for dangerous material from the spacecraft, and then offered them all brownies and milk. Pops put on a big smile and said, "Okay, boys, here's a toast to adventure, and leaving those adventures on the baseball field." "Hear, hear," they all responded quietly. Then BR spoke. "Pops, I hope I can call you Pops." After receiving a smile and a nod, he continued, "Can you help me understand just what happened out there? It's so confusing. I don't get it, but I know I'm really lucky to have escaped." "Sure, BR. Here's what I put together," Pops said. Then Rookie interrupted. "Whatever you put together, Pops, I'm sure glad it was on time." And that was the first smile Rookie had felt in hours. Pops nodded, smiled back to Rookie, and took a deep breath. The story starts with the discovery of 2 moons around Mars in the late 1800s. And it gets interesting when American and Russian space probes were sent there in the late 1900s. They didn't find anything too interesting because those moons had no atmosphere. But a secretive billionaire and a clever astrobiologist teamed up and they sent their own probe. And they discovered extraordinarily valuable materials on Deimos. That's the small moon. You all know gold is valuable. And you probably don't know that many of the materials in those warehouse bins are even more valuable. Here's just one example to help you understand what the bad guy's motivation. A handful of one of them, called palladium, is worth millions. And that's because it can turn the toxic pollutants in car exhaust into plain old carbon dioxide and water vapor. You might have seen another one. There's all kinds of them in there. So it's super valuable stuff on this Martian moon, and nobody there to mine it. And that's when this creepy billionaire named Johnston develops a plan. If you've studied your history, you might know that in the 1700s, when English sailing ships didn't have enough sailors for their voyage, they simply kidnapped young guys from the street and took them on many years long, dangerous journeys, sometimes to China, sometimes far, far, far away. Many of those young men never returned home again. Well, this guy, Johnston, he did a similar thing. He kidnapped boys, many of them baseball players, and sent them on that egg cart in the spaceship to work underground on that Martian moon. And then he used the same spaceship to take the valuable stuff that they've mined back to Earth. Now, this egg carton design had a dual purpose. It kept a dozen boys separated from each other so they couldn't cause trouble. And that was important because it's a 9-month outbound journey. And I think you can imagine a dozen boys strapped like that. They would have caused trouble. Now, on the return, that same egg carton kept the minerals separated and it kept them pure. Now, for efficiency, the spaceship had to be fairly small. And that's where Little League Baseball and the tinkling bat come in. Johnston decided younger Little Leaguers would be best. They'd fit, but they had to be strong ones to be able to dig and break rocks. So he had his thugs insert that special device into the baseball bats to measure hitters' strength. Not long ago, Leo encountered Johnstone, and Leo sat there with a big grin and nodded. And now Johnstone's gone to Never Never Land. But the guy they called Boss took over the operation and continued the scheme. Now, with continued support from the Planetary Defense Council, the police are going to be setting off to bring back those other unfortunate home run hitters who are still on Mars moon and doing all that mining. So that's a short story of what's happened, BR. Any questions? Yes, I do, BR said. Tell me, what did the miners trapped on that moon all alone underground, what did they do when they weren't working? Well, Pop said, with a sad shake of his head, there are no baseball diamonds on Mars. Rookie said, arg. That added torture to all the misery that Johnstone brought to them. Yes, Pops replied, and it shows the importance of having friends and being a good friend. The end.